throws for the end zone. Touchdown, Parker. Liftoff by Xavier Howard. Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Hard work.
What's good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason back here for the second time today, doubling up, and we got a real special one for you tonight. Let's hop right into it. Let's get it rolling. Of course, you know the first man. He is my co-host on the Finish Line and with Richard Webb, and we also do the all 22 breakdowns over here. Mr. BallGame, how you doing, homie?
I'm good, brother. Maxing, relaxing, and just chilling for the action.
Look at this, man. I got the X Flex to go with it too. I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Paul from On the Finside, you guys can follow him on Twitter at fanatic_pick, and you can obviously find his show on the Finside on YouTube, which I'm sure all of you already know. Paul, how you doing tonight?
Doing good, man. I didn't know we were your sloppy seconds for today, but I'm down.
Okay. I froze. He was recently on the show. He helped me preview a game recently as well. You'll all remember him. You can find his work at Dolphins Talk. Kevin Dern, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Always a pleasure to have you, my friend. And then the last time he was on, he had a big announcement for everyone. Dante Collinelli, the floor is yours, my good friend. Can you please tell everyone what your new gig is?
Yeah, so they actually let me run a podcast for NFL Draft Bible. We're diving in. It's called Inside the War Room. We're doing draft room debates. We'll have a Dolphins episode at some point, I'm sure. So give it a shout. NFL Draft Bible Podcast Network. It's brand new. I love being on the show. Thanks for having me back, man.
Appreciate having you, man. Always one of my favorite guests. And of course, the homie DouglieDoWrong. I mean, does he really need any introduction? Douglie, how you doing tonight, my friend?
Doing good. I'm just honored to be on this panel with all these great guys. So I'm doing good.
How's that baby, Doug?
She's good. She's resting right now. So
Okay.
whenever she's resting, I'm doing this stuff.
That's what's up.
All right, so I'm gonna hop right into it. And I mean, whoever wants to knock yourself out, I mean, because you can field it. Was the 2020-2021 NFL season a success for the Miami Dolphins?
Rock, paper, scissors. I'll take this one first. Yeah, 100%. It was a success to take a 5-11 team and put the pieces in that as Brian Flores, Chris Greer. He knows his offensive coordinators. We got rid of defensive, offensive coordinators. We promoted guys. We did all these things coming in the season. No one thought we'd even get 7 wins. So to pull off 10 wins to continue to, you did, but to continue to build off this success, 100%. And we one game away from making the playoffs. So yeah, 100%. This was a success because now we can trust the process, because the process has already shown us, hey, we'll get you 5 wins extra. So let's see what the process does this offseason. So yeah, 100% a success.
Yeah, I'll jump in and second that. It definitely success. I mean, I know I made a joke about the whole saying they'd go 10-6 before the season, but in reality, my biggest thing was that they passed the eye test this year. And God, they passed the eye test flying colors, the way the defense came together, because let's not forget, like Dougley was alluding to, the defense was really patched together this offseason. So early on in the year, you saw them struggle a little bit. If they didn't fall apart a little bit in that last game, they would have been the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL, which was huge with where they came from the previous year. They didn't put themselves in trouble with making any big moves that they could have at times. And so they're really set up for the future and for the long term. And they're, like I said before, they're passing the eye test right now.
I think it was, obviously I concur with both of you. I think the biggest thing is that we've seen now that the leadership that's in place will stay the course. They're not going to make any rash decisions. I think that's a success in itself compared to what we've been accustomed to from previous regimes. The whole go out and just grab a Band-Aid to try to stop the bleeding type of thing is not really going to work anymore. They're actually did a complete surgery on this thing and rebuilt it, you know what I'm saying, to make it look like Steve Austin. So I like that. I like the fact that they tore it down and rebuilt it, and they're sticking to the course, you know. And I think the biggest thing right now is that anyone that can't see that needs to readjust their focus as well and truly get on board with what's happening here, because what's happening is magical, because teams don't generally go from 5 and double up to 10 wins in just one season, especially after the way they tore it down. So, yeah, it was a success, definitely.
And sorry, I just got to say this because there's people in our comments that are thinking he was making a Stone Cold Steve Austin and not a $6 million man Steve Austin reference. So I just want to straighten that one out. Anyways, Kevin, Dante, either one, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that, like, you know, it's easy to look at that 5-win season, right, and go, oh, yeah, we were terrible. I don't think people remember just how bad this football team was at the beginning of last season, right? So this is undoubtedly a success for them to have come as far as they have. And I know that, you know, like Paul said, right, they fell apart a little bit at the end, the defense, but the number one scoring defense in the NFL for most of the year, really. I mean, that is so impressive. You consider, you know, they gave up 60 points in opening week against Baltimore last year, pretty much, right? And then in week 2, they also got run over, right? And this defense, patchwork, not a lot of practice, not a lot of OTAs. They came together, and that was huge. And when you hire a coach like Brian Flores, a defensive mind, you want to see him build that defense, and he built it quickly. So, yeah, undoubtedly a success. Really proud of this team, man. I'm really impressed with what I saw this year.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, you know, I thought kind of if everything went right, 8-8 was kind of going to be the ceiling for what they went this year. So they surpassed even, you know, what my wildest expectations were. And I think the cool part to me is this feels different than, not that they made the playoffs this year, but it feels different than 2008 and 2016, where they've got cap space. They have 9 draft picks going into it. They're set up for sustained success rather than just kind of being a one-year wonder like they were those 2 seasons. And, you know, obviously there's room for Tua to grow. So, you know, I think if he continues that path, you know, the sky's the limit for where they can go in the next 2, 3, 4 years.
I think one of the biggest, one of the more important things for me, and you need to hush, is
that's his dog, guys. All right.
Yeah.
I thought he had some Tua haters back there that he needed to hush him down a little bit.
Is the fact that outside of unfortunately Strawberry is not Strawberry, but
Curtis Weaver
and Noah Igbenogany, all these players that we drafted actually contributed. You don't see that often either.
No, and Igbenogany, by all reports, is actually progressed 1,000,000% since the beginning of the year. We just didn't get the opportunity to see it.
Right.
And one thing I'll say too, to piggyback on Kevin's comment here, is you said it feels different. And one way I'm going to agree with you, and I think you guys can all appreciate this because of what we do, what we're doing here. There's an excitement amongst the fan base right now after this. Like, we're in our off season. We just hit the off season. Playoffs are going. We're not there. But there is an excitement amongst the fan base right now that I can't recall seeing in over a decade. Like, as far as where we're at and where we're going, and the fact that people are so into it right now, 2 weeks after we got eliminated from the playoffs with a 10-6 record. Like, if we were in the NFC, we'd still be playing right now, probably. Like, it just that's how bad it is over there. So the fact that folks are so into this right now speaks volumes for how far this team has come. One that was basically vying for the number 1 draft pick a year ago.
I mean, you know, it's because here's the thing, you know, I'm not trying to be the pessimist or anything like that, but the scary thing to me about the fact that we came away with 10 wins and we didn't get a playoff berth and they added a 7 seed is, BallGame can attest to this. I used to continuously, you know, debate the fact that we're really going to, because, you know, I used to always hear, you know, guys, you know, don't pay quarterbacks on their second contract because a lot of them don't win. And I used to say, it's different because you're dealing with a 20-year dynasty. We're going to see what happens when that 20-year dynasty starts to fall apart. And now we're seeing the balance happen because you brought it up. 7-9 wins you the NFC East. 10-6 doesn't get you a wild card berth in, and how many teams were tied at 10-6? Wasn't it like 4? I believe it was by the end of the day, right in the middle there. So this is my next question. Okay, it's a success because I agree with everything you guys said. Now, this is going to segue into the Watson thing a little bit here. The reason I was so against the Watson thing was when I look at, Benjamin Albright, I think we can all admit he's a pretty legitimate guy. And when he came out in his initial report before the Watson stuff even started to Miami was, because the rumors were starting to rumble, was 3 firsts, 3 seconds, and a roster player. He reiterated that today. He said 3 firsts, 3 seconds, and a Pro Bowl player was actually the wording that was today. Not into the fact that, hey, in 2022, yeah, we got $91 million of cap space, but that doesn't account for this year's draft class. And we all learned last year with 2 firsts and 2 seconds, you need to set aside around 18 to 20 million just for the draft class. All right. Then that doesn't account for next year's draft class, free agency signing this year, et cetera, et cetera. So you guys continued, like there was a theme that went up, that was recurring through a lot of your guys' takes. It was about the process and building and Kevin saying about what he's excited about seeing right now. Do you guys think a trade of that magnitude, whether it was Watson or not, for some kind of that player like that, don't you guys kind of think that goes against the whole philosophy of what Flores and Greer have been putting towards this culture and what they've been building here? Like, doesn't that halt the process in a way? Because we saw year 1 was a teardown. Year 2 was rebuild the defense. Year 3 feels like now it's rebuild the offense and what we want it to be. And then we got what we got, and then we can start adding to where we need to, depth, any pieces we think that are still holes that can be upgraded. I want to ask this question, you guys. You can Deshaun Watson or not. Let's just say elite quarterback you got to trade for. Does that whole thing, that whole idea, and anyone again can feel this, does that go against the grain of Flores' and Greer's philosophy right now with what they're building?
Yeah, 100%. Because if you look at what they were doing, they barely paid in free agency. Yeah, they gave Byron Jones a huge fat contract, but like Kyle Van Noy, Eric Flowers, Shaq Lawson, Emmanuel Ogbah, Fedulum, like all these guys, they're coming off their 4th year, so off their rookie contract, brought them in to build with this team, and then they got a ton of draft. Like BallGame said, we had got 6 starters out of this draft. You never see 6 starters come out of a draft in that first year. So for them to take draft picks, which why would you get all these draft picks just to give it towards one player? $95 million over the next 3 years, guaranteed money. So there goes you signing any free agents to build this team, to put all towards one. That's just not what they do. They just don't. Okay, you're our guy, which, yeah, there's going to be someone who's going to be our guy. We're just going to give you the whole team's money, and then good luck with us building anything off of it. It would be a complete reverse. We went 5-11. We did what we needed to this offseason. We're 10-6, and then I feel like doing that, we would just revert back to like 7-9. Like we would just revert back because it's what we used to do. And Ndamukong Suh, Mike Wallace, Brandon Albert. Oh, let's throw money at this guy because this one piece is a huge dynamic piece versus let's build a dynasty that can continue to churn. Oh, you want a contract? Well, if you don't like this one, we're going to draft a replacement. And so just to give it to one guy, I understand how dynamic Watson is. I understand how much he will help this team. Like, don't get me wrong. With Watson on the team this season, we probably would have won 12 games. And I'm not disagreeing with that. But to give all that money, cap, and everything to one guy, it's just complete backwards of what we've done.
And I'll jump in. Go ahead.
No, you got this. You got this.
So I agree with what Dudley said, other than the case of Deshaun Watson, because I don't know if we've ever really seen a player have all the leverage the way Deshaun Watson does right now. I mean, yeah, Houston might want all those picks and a Pro Bowl player, and we have one that is from Houston himself. I'll let you guys read into that, but he's got all the leverage. If he doesn't want to play, it reminds me. I'm from Cincinnati. It reminds me a lot of the Carson Palmer situation when he forced his way to the Raiders back in, what was that, 2002, 2003? I can't remember the exact year, but I agree. Doing that otherwise would probably be, hurting the process. I think Deshaun Watson's dynamic enough to where if you can get that for way less than what the Texans are asking for, and that may well be the case if it comes to it, I think you have to consider pulling the trigger just because he's so much further along than where Tua is right now. And if you can do that without having to give up, multiple first rounders or something like that, I think you have to highly consider it.
Okay, so Paul, you got it, but let me just ask. I have to follow up. Just in your mind, what kind of, because this is my thing, okay? Nick Caserio is a rookie GM, right? He's an executive in the Patriots, but he basically, if you're going to trade your franchise guy, every exec in the league and every fan base needs to know he won the trade, because if he loses the trade and everyone pretty much has the understanding you didn't win that trade, and then Houston goes, is he going to be a GM again? So what do you think? What is a trade you could, what's a trade you could stomach in that situation? Because I know people in the comments are asking, what's a trade you could stomach with what?
Well, I guess for me, I would say, I don't know if there is really any scenario where Houston wins that trade, given what Deshaun Watson, what his leverage is. I guess for me, I would start it off with, they're obviously going to want Tua back. They don't want to go without a quarterback. I would say they'll probably want both of the first rounders. I would offer him one and just see what happens, because Deshaun has the no trade clause. He can veto locations where he wants to go. I don't know that it's going to get to that point. I'm skeptical that it will, but if it comes down to that, Miami and Deshaun Watson have the leverage the Texans don't. So, I don't really have a good offhand, recommendation of what that trade would be, but Tua, the 18th pick, and, maybe another pick or a player would probably be the max that I would, consider offering to start with.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in on that and kind of expand a little bit on what all of you have said so far. Like Deshaun Watson, obviously he's better than Tua right now. He's better than Tua might ever be. He really, truly is. But the fact that we've got all this capital to build an actual football team is huge, right? And then on top of that, reason you touched on this, the Texans need to win this trade. Not just Nick Caserio needs to win this trade, but on the surface, the Texans need to win this trade after so many piss-poor trades that have burned this franchise to the ground with little hope of even starting a rebuild for 2 years. Nick Caserio drastically needs to come out of this, and the Texans drastically need to come out of this without egg on their face. Like, basically, like, we had to make this deal. They gave us too much for us to refuse. And I don't see Miami in that boat. Now, am I saying Deshaun Watson does not get traded this season? No, I'm not. But I think they will only make that trade if they are going to yield a king's ransom back so that they can look like they won this trade, look like they got themselves catapulted to where they can start rebuilding now instead of in 2 years, and free up some cap space, get some draft picks back, because they're just burnt to just hell right now.
I think one thing I would just like to push back on that a little bit, and I think Kevin kind of mentioned this, is like, is there a version of this trade that the Texans come out as winners, right? Because like at the end of the day, they're trading away the fourth or fifth best quarterback in the NFL, who's someone who's clearly an elite caliber. Like, even if, hypothetically speaking, we trade 3 first-round picks in Tua, hypothetically, is that still a definite win for Houston? Right? Like, everyone's shaking their head no. Like, so I don't know if there's a version of this where Nick Caserio comes out on top.
I got a suggestion for you.
Shoot.
Because think of it, right? He can't be traded till March, right? If you actually go by, like, he can't be traded till March. He can't be traded right now. They can agree upon it, but it can't happen, right? So here's the thing. You don't think Kyle Shanahan, a guy who's sitting right there, he can offer you Jimmy, he can offer you Debo. That won't hurt because he's still got Brandon Ayuk and Kittle. And then he can offer you the 12. I'm sorry?
Watson has the no trade clause. He can veto where he
That's
wants
his
to go.
favorite. Who's his favorite team growing up? And here's the other thing: they can offer you the 12th. They can offer you the 12th and 2 more firsts and second because they are if they get Watson with that offense, like that's like. And here's the thing: all this stuff, because I think it's agent driven. Because BallGame will talk about it too. I'm sure. Watson wasn't even in the country when all this stuff was going on. I really purely think it's agent driven. I mean, when you saw the Mort report, why are we talking about Tua Tagovailoa and draft picks as compensation in the same breath as Deshaun Watson, basically implying, yeah, I'll go to the Dolphins if they trade Tua and like you're not going to say that. It's going to say, yeah, I'll go to the Dolphins. So that's why I feel like it's agent trying to leverage something here. Now they're interviewing Bieniemy, so for all we know, they're going to hire the guy, and it's going to be a moot point at the end of the day. But BallGame, let's hear, because I know you got pretty a strong take on this one, so I'll let you go.
I just think for me, when I look at all of this, right, I take the timeline and I think about the people that I know and where Deshaun was when all this was going down, and I do 100% feel it's agent driven, and I do to some degree feel like this is their way of trying to go reverse of what Andre wasn't able to do. Andre Johnson was a big proponent of having the players have more say so in things, saying at least their top guys have more say so when he was there as well. And I know that Andre and Deshaun's agent are good. And Andre was also a part of that team that they put together to do the whole process of trying to figure out who should be the next GM and things of that nature. And for me, I know that Deshaun he's really upset more about the fact that there aren't as many more black faces around. But at the same time, he's in an organization where it's been clearly proven that they don't really listen to the players. Just do your job, right? And for a long part of that whole process, he did that. So for him to go, for them to say it's Deshaun and for it to be completely against the grain of who he is, I just don't believe it. I do 100% believe, just like I'm being told, that it's the agent, right? And I guess to some degree, the guy is just trying to figure out the best situation to get his client out of there, but your client signed a contract. You know what I'm saying? No. This ain't like the NBA. The NBA is a little different. Like you see the thing with James Harden. You know what I mean? They don't mind moving pieces around like that because at the end of the day, Houston got a king's ransom for what they consider something they can build upon. But if you're telling me legitimately that Deshaun could have got us 12 wins this season, then why couldn't we get to 12 or 13 next year with better weapons with Tua when we got 10?
I'm gonna agree with you, and I'm gonna jump in real quick.
Go ahead, bro. Go.
You mentioned the James Harden thing.
Yeah.
Don't forget, James Harden just got traded from Houston for the most ridiculous package of draft picks I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And you've already got an organization in Houston that has perceivably and realistically lost pretty much every trade for like 2 years.
2 years. Yeah.
Like and not just like kind of lost, like definitively got demolished on every trade the past 2 years. And then you've got the other ball game in town out there literally taking their best player and getting such a ridiculous package back that there's no way that they can. I mean, what was it? 4 first-round picks plus 4 unprotected pick swaps plus, I think they got Oladipo as a throw-in on it. I mean, just like an insanity. And now you're going to walk out and be like, well, we traded him for the 18th overall draft pick, and Tua Tunga, you can't even pronounce it, and well, we gave them our 2023 first round pick as well because
I do think Dante and Kevin are right though. I think they're right. I know. I think everyone's right here. I think you're gonna you're gonna literally come to a standstill where Houston don't want to lose a trade. And they're in a position where they can't win the trade. Like, It's literally going to come to, and that's why I think they're going to hire Bieniemy. Like
the Jags.
This is like Mission Impossible, bro.
He's the Jaguars general manager.
Even if there is no trade, because they've basically, if they hire Bieniemy, they've placated right to Deshaun.
Right.
So they're going to have egg on their face no matter what.
But let me ask you this, Kevin. Did they kind of already placate to him by all of a sudden Bieniemy got an interview after all this? Like, you kind of already showed your hand anyways.
Because he didn't have one prior.
Absolutely.
what I
Even
mean?
if they hire him, is he just a one and done?
Yeah.
It's
See,
funny
here's the thing though, Kevin, because what I read was that company that was looking into the GM search and the head coach search, Bieniemy was on the list of 5 for head coaches, and the number 1 recommendation for GM was Omar Khan, the VP from the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
So they went away, not only interviews, but they went away from like head recommendations and stuff as well. That's from what I understood, that's what was frustrating Deshaun's camp too, was you spent quote unquote hundreds of thousands of dollars for this search and then you didn't listen. And okay, but let's go back to the Dolphins for a sec. Does this, because I mean, Paul, you brought it up. I mean, is Tua ever going to have Deshaun's ceiling? So this begs the question. And again, I'm going to go through you guys one by one. Are you happy with the season Tua had and to the trajectory you see going into year 2 for this kid? And I want to start with you, Dante. Let's hear you, and then we'll go off. Everyone else can go off of you.
Yeah, this is a tough one. As somebody who sat down and broke down every single throw that Tua made this season on Twitter, it's difficult to really say I'm happy with it. I think when you look at the context of the situation, given the lack of receiver talent, I was a bit of a Chan Gailey defender. I don't think he was as bad as everyone made him out to be, but he definitely was not the best option, right, for the job. I think that was clear. I don't think he was as invested as Tua as you need to be when you have a rookie quarterback. And then you look at the offensive line as well, that wasn't very good in front of him. So you've got failing offensive line, you've got bad weapons, and you've got an offensive coordinator who'd rather call plays for a 38-year-old, quarterback who's on his way out. That's kind of the situation that you're in. So if you're Tua, I think he was able to raise the level of the team in the Cardinals and the Chiefs game, right? If you're looking for a prime example of what he will look like as a franchise quarterback, go watch those games again. Go, remind yourself of that. And I think the rest of it will have to come down to next season. I think everyone wants to judge these quarterbacks right away, right off the bat. Nobody wants to have patience, and we kind of got in trouble with that during the draft process. Even everyone wrote off Justin Herbert, and he just had the best rookie season of the 3 quarterbacks. And now everyone's writing off Tua, and there's nothing saying that he won't come back next season and be the best of the rookie quarterbacks. Yep. And I think that when we have an opportunity, and we just talked about this, right, to build this team, I cover the draft. This is a really, really good receiver class. This is a good time to have a wide receiver need. You can get a starting receiver at the top of the first round, at the middle of the first round. Hell, you can probably get one in the 4th round if you really want to. It's a deep class. It's a good opportunity to add weapons around the rookie quarterback. So, look, there are legitimate concerns with Tua's game, and I'll yield to the rest of you. I'll finish with this, is that he does not have the caliber of arm strength right now that we are seeing consistent, allow the elite quarterbacks to win right now. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and he's never going to be those things. He's not. He does not have the physical skill set of those players. He's going to have to win in other ways. And my only concern with Tua is that I don't know if the direction of the game is going to allow him to win the ways that he wants to win. That's my only concern, and I'll yield to you guys because I want to hear your opinions on that.
Yeah, let me jump in here real quick, because then I got to get out of here. I can already hear the baby crying. Looking at Tua's season this year, and I get this a lot because if you watched my channel, the first 4 games I defended Fitz, because a lot of people were crapping on Fitz. We couldn't score against Seattle. We couldn't score in the second half against the Jaguars. We couldn't score in the second half against the Jets. Fitz sucks. We need Tua. And I'm like, the offense he needs help. Tua comes in. I say the same exact things about Tua, and I get called, "Hey, Doug, you are making excuses. Why are you such a Tua fan? Why are you a Tua stan?" Which I'm like, I'm speaking facts. We talk about Tua Tagovailoa and what he did this year. Did he have bad games? Of course. A 9-game rookie, no offseason, had most of his offseason due to rehab. Herbert and Burrow had their offseason training for the season. Yeah, he's going to struggle a little bit. That Cardinals game showed me what this kid can do when he's healthy and when he has the things around him. The Patriots game, he has that interception in the red zone, comes back, marches right down the field, thinks to himself, I'm not going to force that throw, runs it in for a touchdown. The kid can make up his mind and make up mistakes. But the thing that I really want to talk about with Tua and this past season is a lot of people want to compare him to Josh Allen, Rodgers, Wilson, Mahomes, right? If you look at their times to throw, Mahomes, 2.89 seconds. Wilson, 2.97 seconds. Rodgers, 2.72 seconds. Josh Allen had 3 seconds to throw. Tua Tagovailoa, 2.55. Aggressive throw percentage. All of those guys have 11 and 13% on aggressive throws. Tua, 20%. And then the biggest thing that people need to realize when it comes to Tua, yes, he doesn't throw, it's not Alabama open, it's NFL open. The yards difference for the receivers, Patrick Mahomes, 3.2 yards difference when they're open. Wilson, 3-yard difference from passes. Rodgers, 3.15. Allen, 3.25. Tua Tagovailoa's wide receivers, 1.85 yards difference from their corners when the ball's thrown to them. His receivers are not getting open. His receivers are, when they were banged, Preston Williams gets banged up, done for the year. Then we have Parker get banged up. That Chiefs game where he had no one on offense brought us back into the game. But people want to forget about these things because, yes, he had a bad game against Denver. He had a bad game against the Raiders. People want him to be more aggressive like he did against Buffalo. Hold it against him that he threw 3 interceptions. The kid can't win. But in all honesty, looking at the way he played this season, I think he showed a lot that he can build off of. And I think next year he's going to be real good, especially when we get the weapons around him and do his things. I'm loving it.
So, Dougley, I want to take exactly what you just said and change it up a little bit.
Mm.
You said the kid can't win. The kid can win. He's shown that ability. And Dante, you brought up the fact that, he's not going to be Favre. He's not going to be Josh Allen. He's not going to be, I forget who else you said, to be honest with you, right? But it's just being honest.
It's fine.
But here's the thing. That's not his skill set. He just needs to be Tua. He needs a coach that's going to scheme the offense to be Tua. And one of the things I thought about while you were talking, Dante, is the fact that Chan Gailey called a pretty wide open offense when Fitz was on the field. I think we can all agree to that. We've got the breakdowns from CK out there, you name it. When Tua got in there, most of the time he called a compacted offense to a smaller area of the field, right? Now, Tua's pretty damn careful with the ball because with that compacted area of the field, the defenses can adjust to that and kind of play most of that most of the time. And you've got your quarterback that Fitz is going to have those 6 touchdown games. He is. And he's going to have those 6 interception games because he's just going to chuck the rock and whatever happens, happens. I mean, I know it's been described as a YOLO style. And Tua's going to be a little more careful than that. Is he going to take a couple extra sacks that Fitz probably wouldn't? Probably. Is he going to have a 6 interception game? Only if something absolutely catastrophic happens, and probably not. And that's where it's almost like Chan should have opened the offense up more for him as the year went on, and he proved that he wasn't that guy that was going to turn the ball over because he's not going to get the interceptions out there that Fitz is. Can Fitz provide a spark? Can he just chuck it up and whatever happens, happens? Yes, but Tua is going to make good decisions, and he's got such great accuracy, which – that is not an overrated stat. I thought Chad Pennington was trash till he came to Miami, and I watched him game in and game out. He threw a floater, ugly ball, but you know what? It was where it needed to be and where only his guy could get it. And let's face it, a little floater ball, if it's only where your guy can get it, is the most catchable ball on the field unless you're Isaiah Ford.
Real quick, I just want to thank you guys for letting me on. I got to get out of here.
Take care, Doug.
All
right, guys. Catch you later.
Yeah.
Have a good one, Doug. Appreciate you, man.
No problem.
All right, bro. I think the biggest thing is that I don't think anyone wants him to be any of those guys, truthfully. I think they want him to be exactly who he was when they brought him in. The beautiful thing about it all is that he's probably not going to change. And I like that.
Oh, he's not.
I like that. I like the fact that this kid is comfortable with who he is, and he's not going to go out trying to be anyone else. And the biggest thing he's going to have to deal with is winning over people that really and truthfully probably hate him for the fact that he was so successful in college at Alabama. People carry over stuff, man. I think that's what it is more than anything, is that they just generally hate the success he had at Alabama to the point that now they just don't know what to do with it. And he's a part of this organization. You know what I'm saying? They had some residual hate for Nick Saban because he left us, things of that nature. But clear all that out, man. My thing is when you break it all down, and based on what he had to work with, 6-3 out of those 9 games as a rookie. I think that in itself is one of those give him the salute. You know, like come on.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Kevin?
One quick side comment that I know Kevin's got to talk. So,
Hold on, go ahead.
but if no one has a problem with what you did, you never did anything. I tell my kids that, I coach all the time. I tell people that get into this stuff all the time. The second you do something, somebody is going to hate on you for it, and that's okay. It means you did something. Good for
Because
you.
you need haters.
Yeah.
Sorry,
You're fine. That's a good point. And I guess I should start by clarifying, like, I thought Tua had a pretty good rookie season, and I'm happy with him. He was the quarterback I wanted. I would also just be happy if they ended up with Deshaun Watson as well. I'm not saying I'd choose one or the other. I'm happy either way. As far as Tua goes, I go back to what Dante said. I've watched several of his games on the All-22, and there's a lot of stuff that I really enjoyed from him. I think there's a skill set to build on. I do think it's kind of a situation, and I'm not comparing him to Drew Brees, but stylistically, that's who he kind of reminds me of. He's somewhere, in my eyes, on the spectrum of being a left-handed Andy Dalton up to a left-handed Drew Brees. Obviously, he's closer to the left-handed Andy Dalton right now, but if you can build up that offense and kind of scheme it so he can, maximize his skill set, I think he will take a nice jump, from year 1 to year 2 and probably thereafter. We just didn't have the pieces and the system around him this past year. So I think to do what he did, given the circumstances and the injuries and all that, was pretty impressive. It's a shame that, Justin Herbert had such a lights out season, and, Burrow started off as hot as he did. It just kind of overshadowed what Tua actually did.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to kick it right back to you, Kevin. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, BallGame. I see your hand up.
I just think across the board in the bigger scheme of things, what's more important, the wins or the stats? Because that's what you really have to break it down to. Because with a defense like the one that we have, if they bring in the pieces, the offense I think will flourish. But at the same time, isn't it more important to get the wins, right, as opposed to the individual stats? Because I think that's what that's the biggest thing people say about the difference between them. Oh, he threw for this and he threw for that, but they didn't win.
Right. But that's what people look at the stats though when they compare two players. So
yeah, well, that one guy had 12 games and the other guy had 9.
Yeah.
That's an unfair comparison right out the gate anyway. Then,
well, so you remember at one point when Herbert, I believe it was like week 14 or week 15, do you remember he reached about 531 attempts, and then there was someone that extrapolated all the numbers between them over 531 attempts at that point, and they predicted Herbert to, he had 27 touchdowns and 10 interceptions over those 531 attempts so far, and Tua, he finished with 22 touchdowns and 5 interceptions over it because obviously the 3 interception game hadn't happened yet. He was only about 300 yards less than him. Joe Burrow was actually only 17 touchdowns and 6 and again, they're extrapolated numbers over averages and stuff. But the difference here is he's got better weapons. I mean, can we all agree that you're taking Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Hunter Henry and Austin Eckler over what we probably have this year? Yeah. I mean, their offensive line at times was definitely shoddy, so we can feel their pain there. But they were also playing behind where, Herbert had already thrown more than 50 times, multiple times in his career before Tua ever hit 40 times. You know what I mean? Same thing with Burrow. I mean, when you're down by 15, 20 points, and let's be honest, we can all sit here and say Tua didn't do enough to win us a game. Okay, we can all say that. Did he throw an interception to cost us the game like Herbert did in Denver? I don't think I don't think Tua legitimately handed over a game to another team like that Denver situation. He didn't do that. You know what I mean? And we saw when, hey, kid, let it roll against Kansas City, and he almost brought us back. The problem was, let's be honest, that Buffalo game, the only person who showed up like a playoff berth was on the line was Andrew Van Ginkel. Everyone else was taking snaps off, bro. Like, I mean, you're putting 110% off, you know what I mean? But I'm saying they're getting beat on snap. Like, let's be honest, Andrew Van Ginkel was the only one with the high-end motor and the only one who said, oh my God, there's a playoff berth on the line. But then there was guys where certain plays, they realized it, and then they reverted back to, oh, it's just another game. Like, X made that pick. God love him, but anyone can go back and watch the all-22. There were times where he was chasing routes and not mirroring them on crossing routes. So, because he went out there and started saying, I can turn 4 or 5 guys into 4-3 guys right before our biggest game of the season. This guy's giving the epitome of chalkboard material. So I take that game as a wash. I don't think anyone really showed up in that last game. I think it was bad on both ends because you take away, and no one wants, here's another thing. No one wants to talk about how bad special teams were against the Raiders and the Bills. Matt Hawk was god awful. The guy's punting from our 15. They're starting at their own 45. Like, consistently. 2 weeks in a row, we give up special teams touchdowns. Like, no one wants to talk, and like at bad times. So, like, here's the thing. You take away the pick six, Josh Norman got away with holding Devontae and pulling him down. You take away the special teams touchdown. We're still asking our rookie quarterback, hey, kid, in Buffalo, go put up 43, because that's at least what we're going to need to beat the 42 points that we've done by deduction right now. Like, the only time Herbert ever saw the 40s was when Belichick put up 45 and he put up a goose egg. So, like that's what I'm sitting here saying. The expectations of the people. My problem is people aren't taking into context of how much more vertical Herbert was asked to throw. Okay. They weren't taking into context how many more times he was asked to throw. No one wants to take it as these. You know what people list those as? Excuses. People list context as excuses. That's the new wave. We talked earlier about no one's got patience. No one's got patience. It's because that's the new 2020 sports fan thing. Oh, context isn't context. It's the excuse. I say this all the time. You would think some Dolphin fans don't know what the word context is, let alone how to spell it, because they just don't take it into account.
So, Reason, I'm going to jump in real quick because you got a lot to unpack from that.
Oh, go ahead, bro. That was loaded, bro. That was loaded.
So, a couple of things. For one, yeah, we talked about how the special teams is god awful. I agree with you. Those couple of games, right?
Holly.
But so Justin Herbert, you take a look at the yards after catch numbers. For one, for two, you take into account the fact that we've already talked about this. Tua did have a much shorter offense called for him most of the time, and he wasn't getting the yards after the catch. You take into account the fact that the defense and special teams for most of the season was really putting Tua in a much shorter field than what Justin Herbert was, and your numbers are going to be adjusted there. And then, God, I forget what my last point is, but regardless, you can't compare the two. They were in wholly different. Oh,
that's my point. That's my whole point. Yeah.
San Diego was playing from down so
every game.
Often this year that you're going to be chucking the ball up 50 60 times a game trying to catch up to whoever's whooping the shit out of you on your whooping you on your simplistic defense, which is part of why I want nothing to do with, and because San Diego was a simplistically coached team. They absolutely were on offense, on defense. You knew what they were doing on any given play. It was either they were pushing A, B, or C to pick their play and saying, go for it, guys.
I just want to jump in there. There's a lot to unpack there. I think Dolphins fans have, and this goes in general, right? Like, it doesn't. My big thing during the season was when people were comparing Herbert to Tua was that you shouldn't do that for all of the reasons that you guys just listed, right, and more probably. And the other thing is it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. My question is always, is Tua Tagovailoa a franchise quarterback? If the answer to that question is yes, then I don't really give a crap where he ranks relative to Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow. I really don't. It doesn't matter to me. If he's good enough to raise the level of my team where I can win a Super Bowl, I really don't care if he's better or worse than Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow. It doesn't matter to me. I know fans, they like that competition, and the media is always going to push that narrative because they were drafted in the first round the same year. But again, I would argue that Dolphins fans should really don't worry about Justin Herbert. Focus on your guy. Look at what your guy's done well and what he's able to do. I think the other point, and this is kind of getting back to where we started this conversation, is the Dolphins drafted a really, really unique quarterback prospect at number 5 overall. There are not a lot of quarterback prospects that win the way that Tua does that are still in the NFL. He's very much a bit more of a throwback, right? The left-handed Drew Brees comparison is one that gets thrown around a lot. You need to design your offense to specifically cater to what he's good at, and you need to drive that point home over multiple years of team building. You know, the Bills did something pretty similar with Josh Allen, and I bring this up a lot. The Bills' model of what they've done with Josh Allen is what the Dolphins need to do with Tua, except the skill set is different, right? But what did the Bills do? They spent an exuberant amount of money bringing in receivers and offensive linemen that fit what they wanted to do on offense. They self-scouted, and they said, you know what? We need an elite separating wide receiver 1, and they ponied up a first-round pick for Stephon Diggs and more. Right? Like the Dolphins need to go into this and they need to drive hard at what makes Tua good. That's yak receivers. That's a good, quick passing game with spread concepts and empty sets. Right? Like even, and this is another thing that I would get into too, is like the Bengals really leaned into Joe Burrow's strengths. And that's why he looked so good at the beginning of the year. They ripped plays straight out of the LSU playbook. They changed absolutely nothing about them and ran them back early in the season with Joe Burrow. We didn't see anything like that from Miami. RPOs don't count. Everyone runs the same RPOs. That doesn't count as ripping a play out of the Bama playbook. So the Dolphins, my bigger worry is less about Tua, quite frankly, and more about how hard the Dolphins are going to drive to make him successful, because Chan Gailey was not the right offensive coordinator hire. I defended him, but he clearly was much more interested in coaching Ryan Fitzpatrick than he was coaching Tua. And Brian Flores is a defensive-minded coach. They don't have the right weapons right now, and I'm not saying they can't fix these things, but those things worry me significantly more than Tua, right? Because he's a unique prospect. This was, you had to know what you were getting into when you drafted him. And right now, I don't see the proper commitment to this quarterback from a play calling, from a hiring standpoint, from a playmaking standpoint. They don't have any of the right pieces around him, really. And that worries me more than anything else.
Yeah, and one thing I just want to add to that, too, is, and I've said this, reason I know you watch our channel sometimes. I've said this on our channel. And what Miami drafted in Tua was a guy that's efficient. And I think that's a lot of what you were just talking about, Dante. He is efficient. And everybody wants to compare this Dolphins team to the Patriots, given the fact where Flores came from and, Belichick hiring tree. But really, the way that Greer and Marvin Allen and Reggie McKenzie are building this team for Brian Flores more similarly models the Ravens about 20 years ago, 18 years ago, whatever it was, where they're building a dominant defense that flips the field. They're building a dominant special teams unit most of the time that flips the field. And they're building an offense that doesn't turn the ball over and just gets it done. And so do I think that Tua's floor is higher than Trent Dilfer's ceiling? Absolutely. Right?
Yeah.
And all he needs to be in that Ravens model is Trent Dilfer, and we're going to get there. So the fact that his floor is higher than Trent Dilfer's ceiling tells me everything I need to know about him being the right answer here. My biggest thing going into the season wasn't what Tua throws up for yardage, wasn't how many Rookie of the Year awards he gets. It was knowing he's efficient and can he stay healthy? And guess what? He's still walking. He had a thumb injury, which whatever.
And
so
Paul,
I'm good.
Paul, before that Buffalo game, I mean, look at the efficiency he was giving you just by his ratio and in the clean pocket, right? At one point, he was the only quarterback in the NFL that had no interceptions from a clean pocket. So I'm just sitting here saying, okay, ball game. Kevin, I got to hear your thoughts on this, guys.
Yeah, I'm inclined to believe, man, that the model, like Paul said, is very similar to the one they had with Dilfer there in Baltimore. You build a defense, obviously. I mean, I'm a big defensive builder. I always think that if you have an elite defense, you can have a above average offense and win a lot of games because, the team that you match up against is all about field position anyway. If you can stifle their offense, that's going to put your team in good positions to win a lot of games because you don't have to go whole field to go score and things of that nature. And what we did thus far is really, resembling that type of model. I don't think that Trent Dilfer comparison is funny though, but I think he's gonna be way better than Dilfer. And Dilfer even said it on one of his own podcasts. He say, this kid's gonna be way better than I ever could have thought to been, even in my best dream. But I gotta believe, I gotta believe that what we saw from him this season will be exponentially blown out of the water in terms of what we see next year, because with the full off season and things of that nature, I don't see a failure in him. I don't think he's built for that. I don't think he's at any point the type to actually go out and allow himself to do anything else other than prove the naysayers wrong through his actions on the field, and I think that's what makes me gravitate more to him. And I don't even, reason, I don't even care for quarterbacks, but I like the moxie of this kid, and against all odds, he stands in that pocket with that shoddy offensive line we had, took some shots and got right back up and went right back at it again like it never even happened. Just shake it off and keep it moving. And that's what I like, from a rookie. For me, I don't evaluate quarterbacks the same because I feel like they all need 3 years. That's why when people laughed at me when Josh Allen got drafted, and I was like, hey, McDermott is going to do everything he's got to do to get it right around that kid. And man, that dude, man, he never played anybody in college. I was like, that's not why you drafted him. You see that cannon?
Yeah.
You got to look at the attributes. You know what I'm saying? There are certain attributes that you just can't do anything about. And that his stature and that big cannon, you can teach him finesse. You can teach him all those other things. And as you look over the course, they put that offensive line. I think somebody already alluded to that. They did the process exactly the way it's supposed to be done. And now look what they got going on with Josh. And I believe that Flores is smart enough coming from dealing with Bill and watching around the league and seeing how other teams have failed at these processes to know, like, rushing this process and not giving this kid everything he needs is going to be a failure for us long term. But I got to build it also my way. So me being defensive minded, I'm gonna put the team out there on the opposite side of the ball, this defense, to help him. That's gonna be my help for him. And I'm gonna sit him down every week so he can come sit down with me personally so I can teach him how to read defenses. Right? I mean, like, I don't know too many other. Have you heard any reports of any other head coach as a defensive guy calling their wide receiver in to sit him down to teach him defenses? Like, that's exceptional, man. Like, I used to do that in high school, but even then, it's a challenge because offensive guys are always offensive minded. But when you can have an offensive guy be defensive minded, man, and he's a lefty. This thing gonna be special. We just gotta let it. We just gotta let it grow. It's going to be special.
Just let it happen, ball game.
Yeah. Yo, Kevin, what are your thoughts on it, buddy?
Well, I'll go with the special teams being poor was the curse of Nate Hawley, because I think he played in 4 games and 3 of them were all pretty bad. I know they gave up touchdowns on punt returns in 2 of them. So, but all kidding aside, I kind of agree with what Paul said before. Like building it like the Ravens, to me, it kind of reminds me of the early 3 Super Bowls that the Patriots won back when they had Corey Dillon and Antoine Smith in that running game with the great defense. I'm totally fine with Tua, and I think he will get better. I just think they need to put better personnel around him. And to kind of piggyback on the point about, building that running game, I think it's kind of interesting that Mike McDaniel and Eric Studesville are 2 of the candidates, and they've mostly been running backs coaches and running coordinators, throughout their NFL careers so far. I know Coach Studesville had the interim, coaching gig when Tim Tebow was in Denver that first year. But I think it's interesting. And, I do know, speaking with someone who was at training camp last year, that they tried to work on running the ball quite a bit more than most fans would expect. So it makes sense to me. And hopefully they see it through properly. Like Dante said, after all, I mean, I love Coach Flores to death, but this will be the 3rd offensive coordinator in 3 seasons, like it or not. So
yeah. All right, Kevin, I'm going to kick it right back to you. And because I got to ask Dante this with a special twist. So I'm going to kick it right back to you. I got to ask you this. All right. We're talking about weapons. This is a perfect segue. Draft's coming up. We got the 3rd and 18th pick. All right. Now, everyone pretty much knows I'm a proponent of taking Penei Sewell.
He froze.
I think he froze.
Oh, he got his point out. He's taking Penei Sewell. So.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, like I, gun to my head. I've said this on my stream. Gun to my head. If you had to say reason, pick one guy who's going to get a yellow jacket out of this draft, I would say Sewell. That again, obviously you can't say that. I'm just saying if someone put a gun to my head, I don't know who would, but all the power to you if you would. So who would you, Kevin? You look at 3, okay? Let's say the Jets. Let's say Douglas says, you know what? We don't want Justin Fields. We don't want Zach Wilson at 2, even though I think they're going to go that route. But nonetheless, let's say they take Sewell right there. What are you doing at 3 when we're talking about weapons right now?
If it's talking about weapons only, either Devontae Smith or Jamar Chase. That's my discussion right there. One of those two.
So I'm guessing you'd want to trade back. That would be your ideal.
No, not necessarily. There's a couple other players I would be comfortable with at 3, but if we're only talking,
no, name them. What would you do at 3? Go ahead.
This one's a kind of a wild card shot in the dark for me, but I really like Joseph Osai from Texas. I think that's probably too high to take him. But I think there's a lot of interesting things you could do with the defense if he's incorporated into it. I don't think they would do that at 3. But to me, it's Devontae Smith or Jamar Chase.
All right, so Dante Collinelli. Oh, I gotta ask him this, brother, because
Oh,
I wanted to ask him earlier when he was talking about it. Dante,
Yeah.
Devontae Smith or Jamar Chase?
I would throw Jalen Waddle into that mix. Micah Parsons, no matter what. I don't know about that one, but I would throw Jalen Waddle into that mix as well. I think one of the things that I was really upset with the Dolphins was a lack of vertical stretchability from the slot position. That was supposed to be Hakeem Grant, but he can't catch, so that's not going to work. And he's honestly just not even that good of a ball tracker either. I think when you get Waddle in here, one, you have chemistry with Tua on those deep shots. He knows how the ball's going to come off of his hands. It should make things a little bit easier for them to stretch the field. And I just think Waddle also gives you a really, really dynamic player to pick up yet more yak. I mean, he's one of the best yak guys in the league. He was outperforming Devontae Smith before he got hurt. I think a lot of people are just kind of brushing over that. There's a good chance that if Waddle had played the entire season, he might have won the Heisman instead of Devontae Smith. There really is that chance. And, I think that he's right up in there. My pushback would be on the Jamar Chase pick, not because he's a bad player. I think he's very, very good. But in my opinion, I think we have 2 Jamar Chases on the roster already in Preston Williams and Devontae Parker. For me, Chase doesn't bring any new skill set to the table that those players don't already possess. He's not an elite separator. He's not an elite route runner. He's not very fast. And I feel like, yeah, he can be healthy. So maybe that's one, right? He sat out the whole year, so he should be healthy. But I think Smith and Waddle, if we're talking strictly weapons, we're not talking defense or offensive line, those would be the top 2 guys on my board. I would not complain about Jamar Chase. I like good football players, and he's a good football player. So if that's what they think BPA is, that's fine. But I think the Bama boys, for me, I would be higher on my board if I'm Miami. I think they bring what this team needs, man. We need more juice, and I don't know if Chase has enough to really put us over the top.
Okay, because you opened it up before we get Paul and BallGame's take. Now, all defense, all tackle.
Oh, he froze again. I think I know where he was going. I would take Sewell would be my first choice at 3. I'm pretty sure that's where he was going. For me, it would be Sewell, trade back, wide receiver. And that would be kind of my hierarchy. The only reason I would put receiver 3rd is because I think if I trade back, I can still get a good player, either with 18 or with whatever pick I pick up from 3. It's also a good class where I might be able to get a good receiver in the middle of the rounds as well. So that would be my hierarchy. I would not consider any of the top defensive prospects in this class at 3. I don't think any of them are worth the 3rd pick. Micah Parsons' film is very good. I don't think he's worth the 3rd pick, and there's some character concerns there as well that worry me. I don't know if he's a Flores guy. So that would be my hierarchy, but we'll kick it to everyone else and see what they think.
Let's kick it to the Parsons guy. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So I'm going to agree with you, Dante. I would not take Micah Parsons third overall. But here's my thing. I expect 3 quarterbacks to go in the top 5 here. Maybe not to the teams that are currently there right now, but I expect 3 quarterbacks to go in the top 5. I expect Penei Sewell to go in the top 5. I still say, and I've been saying it from day one, once the Jets locked in that number 2 pick, I see him going to the New York Jets. I see them building those bookends, whether they're a dark horse in that Deshaun Watson stuff. If they can pull it off without giving up the 3rd overall, they can sell him on the fact that they've got Mekhi Becton and Penei Sewell on either side of him, protecting both edges. They can sell him on that. They've got some weapons for him. But I see Penei Sewell going to the Jets. I see 3 quarterbacks going in the top 5. I'm eyeballing the 5th or 6th pick, making phone calls, trying to drop back, add another first next year with a team that's probably going to be top 10 in those teams. And looking at Micah Parsons, looking at maybe Devontae Smith slides there. He's only got to slide through 1 or 2 teams at that point. Jamar Chase will be there. Jalen Waddle will be. You've got like 5 or 6 guys that are worthy of that 6th pick that will be probably on the board. I mean, hell, even Kyle Pitts, which I know people are like, oh, we've got Mike Gesicki. Guess what? If your offensive coordinator can't design an offense that accounts for Kyle Pitts and Mike Gesicki on the field, I don't want you for an offensive coordinator. You've got to be able to design. If you can add a weapon, you figure out a way to use them.
I'm gonna throw a monkey wrench in all of this. So at number 3,
you're taking a punter, aren't you?
No. The defensive guy is gonna take a punter. But in all fairness, if Penei Sewell is gone at 3, I'm moving back. I'm allowed the Carolina Panthers to jump up there. I'll take their pick at 8, and then I'll also package that so they can send me Curtis Samuels, and then I'll grab me another wide receiver with their pick, and then I have my 2 guys that I need at that point. I think Samuels is dynamic enough for us to be able to go, and then we take so basically it's their 1st, their 2nd, their 4th, and a 1st next year. And
Samuel's a free agent, isn't he?
Well, but the reports are that he's probably going to resign. So, if he still belongs to them, or if we can get him in free agency, then don't worry about it. But if he resigns with them, then send him to us. Right? They already done all of that. Send him to us, and we have that.
NBA style. I like it.
You feel what I'm saying? And then we still get to sit though, right? They move up to 3. We still get the pick at 8. Then at that point, grab another weapon, and now we even better now because we just add another 2nd in the second round.
I just wanted to. So there's a guy I've followed on Twitter for quite some time. I've told all my viewers about him. He's pretty locked into all of New York sports, like Giants, Jets, Rangers, Islanders, Knicks, Nets. Like he's locked in. All right. His name's Incarcerated Bob. Dante might actually know who he is because he's got into it with Benjamin Albright before. Like they've gone back and forth, and Benjamin Albright's actually refused.
Oh, frozen,
man.
Paul, you don't like my Samuels idea?
I do, but I
son of a bitch.
For free agency or
I think he'd be a great fit. I just knew he was a free agent.
Yeah,
I know
he's on my free agent target list.
Yeah.
But anyways, where I was going with this whole Incarcerated Bob thing for a sec.
Yeah, sorry.
He came out with a report this week that basically no matter what they do with the 2nd pick, Sam Darnold is going to be shopped this offseason because from his source, Joe Douglas was not impressed with his deep ball accuracy and was not impressed with Sam Darnold's play in second halves when defenses made adjustments towards him. So that's what the report was. But it did say no matter what they do with the 2nd pick, they're shopping Sam Darnold. That's what it said.
Darnold to the coach.
Well, here's the thing that I'm going to say to that though. If I were a head coach being brought in for an interview, I would not want the GM dictating to me that no matter what, he's shopping my team.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I want my quarterback shopped, or I want you to make a difference, even if it's behind a closed door, right? But you do not shop the quarterback while you're doing your coaching search, period. You don't put – that's insane to me because somebody may be looking at Darnold's footage and going, you know what, that is an attractive job. I can go in there, I can rehab Darnold, and I can go out and grab Penei Sewell to protect his blind side, have Mekhi, or protect one side, have Mekhi Becton on the other side, and be ready to go. Like, you don't dictate that to the head coach walking in, like, by the way, if you want this job, just so you know,
Damn, Donald out the door.
He's out.
Well, wouldn't you not hire the candidate who wants to fix Sam Darnold if you've already settled on shopping
maybe.
him?
I mean,
like, why would you hire that candidate then, right? Like, if I've settled on getting rid of Sam Darnold and that's the direction I want my franchise to go as the incumbent general manager, I'm not going to hire a coach who comes to me with his plan and says, I can fix Sam Darnold. I've already moved on from Sam Darnold. Again, like, you might be right. I'm just saying, like, I think that makes more sense, right? Like, you wouldn't hire that coach.
We're kind of talking chicken and the egg, and
right.
With that, we are.
You're right.
At the end of the day, that GM should wait. I mean, for one, you don't have to make a decision on freaking anybody.
Anything right now.
Right? Except, what's the one thing he can make a decision on right now? The head coach position. Make that decision first and work symbiotically, like what we've seen from Greer, Allen, McKenzie, and Flores. Those guys are in lockstep. There's no Greer going like, screw it, I don't like this guy, he's out. Like, and Flores going like, oh, really? Oh,
I want you to realize you're giving the New York Jets advice right now, first and foremost.
Well, man, we just it's all good.
No, but you got to understand. Here's the
though.
thing. No, but here's the thing. You guys got to also understand how it usually. Well, and I know you do, but here's the thing. You got a GM. Darnold's not his guy. He did not draft him, and you're gonna have a head coach. What's the one thing usually a GM wants to attach his name to? His own coach and his own quarterback. That's his thumbprint on the team. And usually a head coach wants his own guy too, because I tell you this. You use the word rehab. As a head coach, why am I going to sit here? Am I going to rehab problems that weren't fixed from USC and bad traits that Adam Gase instilled when I can go draft Zach Wilson, shout out to Dante Collinelli, or I can draft Justin Fields, and I can shape and I can mold that young mind and that quarterback in my vision and my culture of what a quarterback in my system is. That's what I think people are missing out here. That's why I wouldn't be surprised. Joe Douglas knows what, like, look at his draft. He knocked it out of the park last year, and I don't think he wants to be attached to Douglas because I think he sees him as damaged goods right now. And I don't think they're going to extend him.
If I were coming in for that head coach interview, right, I would want the opportunity to sit with Darnold, talk about the flaws I saw, right, see if they're fixable. I know what Darnold is at an NFL level, right, and I know what I see that I can fix if I think that that's the case, right? I sit with him, figure out if this is something we can work on moving forward. I've got 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. I could figure this out before free agency and the league year kicked off, right? As far as that goes, as far as, is this something we can even think about working on? Anybody that comes out in the draft, you don't know how they're going to respond to NFL caliber talent, defenses, coordinators, schedule, demand, freedom, all of those things. We see these guys at the top of the draft fall apart every year. You at least have seen that Darnold, for the most part, can respond at an NFL level. Now, can we fix the things and tweak the things? Gase be damned. You know, you figure that out once you figure out who your head coach is, not before.
Yeah, I just think because they're going to, like, look at your, like, it sounds like it's going to be Robert Salah. I think, you know, you got guys in the league who they already know what Darnold is. And that's what your issue is. You got a guy who, you know, he's what is he? You think the fourth year? But okay, here's the thing. You got how many people are going to come in? We were in a rare, how many people? We had a bunch of idiots rolling through here. I mean, like Tannenbaum, Ireland, we had a bunch of idiots rolling through here, right? Like, Douglas is not an idiot, man. Douglas is a very smart guy, and that's what I'm sitting here and saying. Like, again, what's your shelf life going to be if you attach it to Darnold as opposed to you draft your own guy? That's a longer shelf life if you draft your own guy as opposed to attaching to, because you know what people are going to say after 1 or 2 years? You knew what Darnold was. You had the number 2 pick. You stuck with him. And now we're not re-upping him because we didn't like the option year. What do we got now? We might have a high draft pick, but we're still 2 or 3 years behind where we could have been. And I don't see Douglas doing that, man. I really think the number one thing that GMs usually do with their fingerprint on a team is their head coach and their quarterback, and Darnold ain't his quarterback. So I personally think he's going to get traded. Do I think Sam Darnold's talented? Yes. Do I think if he goes to Indianapolis, the Jets are going to regret it? 110%, but they're the Jets. So, I mean, it is what it is. I just don't think Douglas wants to be attached to that situation, man. Like that's where I'm at with it.
So, reason you see what we did here? We just spent 20 minutes on the Jets on your Dolphins.
Hey, at least I didn't give him advice, bro.
Hey, if the Jets want to take my advice, they're welcome to pay me as well. I'll take it. I'll cash that check every day and Sunday too.
That's jokes. All right. So I wanted to ask you guys, looking at free agency, there's some good names that might hit the market. Corey Linsley, Aaron Jones, there's, Taylor Moton. Everyone's talking about the right tackle from Carolina. When you go through, are there any guys that you are looking at right now that pique your interest? I'll start with you, Paul.
Yeah, one of the guys I'm staring straight at is, I know there are some elite receivers up right now. A couple of them are probably going to end up franchised. And I'm going to go back to something you said earlier, Dante, about the deep ball threat. Marvin Jones can run a deep route. He's a veteran. He's not going to command top dollar. And he's a guy that if you've got Marvin Jones and you've got Mike Gesicki, you can make opposing defenses have to account 3 or 4 people down the field on any given play and open up all that underneath stuff that Tua can do really well with as well. And open up some of those running lanes for your smaller running backs as they stand right now. So you're really setting yourself up where you can do all the things you want to do on offense and utilize the entire field by grabbing a guy like Marvin Jones. And you're going to add a little bit of a veteran presence. I know he's a little older, but you're going to add that little bit of veteran presence to the offense with the receivers. Teach some of these young guys how to be professionals, how to get their body right, how to be ready to go on Sundays, how to not make the bad decisions off the field, and be that leader for those guys.
BallGame? I know you want Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, because I think the other guy's gonna be gone. I think Godwin's gonna be gone. Godwin's gonna be gone. Tampa Bay probably gonna re-sign him. So the only the guys that fit what we want to do in terms of the horizontal to get vertical. Samuels and truthfully, Samuels and Godwin, the only two that fit that bill. And I don't really lean too much toward the older wide receivers. I get what you're saying. They'll bring a guy in to help, bring the young guys up to speed. I get that, but I think we already got that with Devontae to some degree, right? I think he's coming to his own, but he's really coming to his
own, but I wouldn't say veteran presence.
Well, 5 years.
Some of it's about the guy. Yeah. He's coming to his own play wise. I don't see him out there being that leader that's gonna ever get that C badge on his chest.
Okay, well we just got to see them, right? I mean, he's still gonna be here, so we'll see what he does because somebody got to step up in that group. I think for me, man, showing up this offensive line now, I don't like the numbers associated with what they're saying Taylor Moton's gonna cost, but you pay for, you pay for top protection. I mean, it kind of is what it is, and we're dealing with a left-handed quarterback. So, by all intents and purposes, for me, you pay for that. I mean, our guy on the left is a young guy. He can stay there and learn, but I mean, you got to protect the blind side of Tua. So the guy that's going to be doing that job needs to be an elite talent. And I don't see anybody else out there other than Ramczyk. But he signed the 5. He signed. They tended him.
Moton from Carolina.
Moton, but Ramczyk from the Saints. But I think they already did his 5th-year option, so they knew what they had in that guy. If we could have got him, then that would have been amazing. So the next guy up is Taylor Moton for me. I mean, if you're gonna target somebody in the free agency, then finish off the line and just hope that Eric Flowers, doesn't go out there stealing money from us again next season, because that's all he did this year. He should be writing a check back to us. I'm still waiting on that to show up.
Yeah, that's why I get Corey Linsley. But okay, Kevin, I wanted to ask you. All right, we've talked about offense. And obviously, we know they spent some money last year. Do you think they'd entertain? Now, I know he's traditionally a 4-3 guy. Do you think they would entertain a guy like Levante David?
I was wondering if you were going to ask me that because I know we talked about that when I was on before the Bills game. I actually did have 3 names on offense, though.
Go ahead. Go. Rile them off, brother.
This guy is from South Florida, T.Y. Hilton. I think there's still some decent football you could get from there and still have a veteran presence at receiver. And then there's a pair of Kansas City Chiefs, Sammy Watkins, who feels like he should be 35, but he's only 28 right now.
Wow. I didn't even know he was that young.
Came into the NFL when he was 20. And Demarcus Robinson would be another guy I would look at, although that's probably not, a top 2 or 3 receiver even on the team, but maybe as a replacement for Jakeem Grant. As far as Levante David goes, I think it kind of depends on how this defense evolves. If they really want to kind of morph into more of a 3-man front type of defense and run a lot of 3-4 and a lot of the 3-3 diamond stuff, I know they parted ways with Marion Hobby, so I'm curious to see what happens at the D-line coach, whether it's Rob Leonard that gets promoted or if they look at Brendan Daly in Kansas City, who was in New England with Flores. I think that might be kind of a telling sign of what's going to happen. But I think Levante David fits if you're willing to kind of adapt that defensive style. Otherwise, you have Jerome Baker, who had a pretty nice year and kind of plays that same role if you're going to continue to be as multiple as they were. So I think there's kind of a domino that has to fall there. But he would give you another veteran presence along with Kyle Van Noy. But for the money and for the type of career and season he's coming off of, I just don't know that would be something they're going to be willing to spend on again this offseason, given all the needs on the other side of the football.
Would a guy like Denzel Perryman make more sense if they're going to go out linebacker to you than a guy like Levante David, who's more of a run specialist and stuff?
No, I think they got rid of Raekwon McMillan for a reason. I think Denzel Perryman's kind of
the same
in that same mold. I think you can do better.
Dante, when you look at the free agency class, which guys kind of not only pique your interest but make sense for you?
Yeah, I think the other guys did a really good job highlighting a lot of the ones that I would bring to the table. I think Curtis Samuel's really interesting, manufactured touch player. He separates really nicely on underneath stuff. And that's the kind of things that we need. I would caution paying anyone over the age of 30 in free agency. I'm very much in the boat of the younger generation of football fans that is almost like anti-paying people money. And I think when you get to a certain point, I don't know. I prefer to build through the draft. And again, I'm a draft guy. I'm inherently biased against that. I understand. But for me, paying somebody like Levante David to be one of the, top 3 linebackers probably in the league as far as contract, that is not appealing to me whatsoever, whether he's a scheme fit or not. I wouldn't even get that far if I was the GM. Marvin Jones is interesting depending on how much money he wants to command. If it's a really cheap contract, I'm good with it, honestly. Even though he's 31, it's a 1-year deal. He comes in, you know what? Maybe he's really good in the red zone. We could use a little bit of help there as well. He's a big body, good, catch point guy. But I don't know. I don't particularly like spending a ton of money in free agency. I think you want to build your big pieces through the draft. And you want to kind and fill holes with bargain contracts in free agency. Yep. One name that I'll bring to the table that I think is super under the radar, and it's just because he's a player that I really liked coming out of the draft, and he's been okay. Braxton Berrios for the Jets, I think could be a really, really nice slot guy for us and a punt returner. I think he brings more returning chops than Grant, or at least more return consistency than Grant does. Grant probably has a higher ceiling as a returner, but I think Berrios is actually more consistent. He's a Miami guy. I really like him in the slot. I think he's a lot better than people give him credit for. One of the better guys on that Jets offense this year. He won't cost you a lot of money. He helps the receiver room early. He's familiar with the spread scheme. I'm assuming that's what they're going to end up bringing in at the end of the day. So that would be my super under the radar guy, but there's a lot of good options. I like Curtis Samuel. If you're going to get Taylor Moton, try not to make him one of the highest paid tackles in the league. That reminds me a lot of Juwan James when he went to Denver. That strikes me as a very similar type of move. from a philosophy standpoint. So I always caution fans to not want to overpay guys in free agency, man, because that's how you start to get in trouble real quickly. That's what happened to the Eagles. You miss on one draft, you overpay a couple of guys in free agency, and boom, you're over the cap and you're screwed. So I don't want the Dolphins to go that route. We've gone that route before. I forget who said it earlier, talking about Mike Wallace and Ndamukong Suh. Like, we've done those things before. I think we would be wise to continue building through the draft.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I got 2 questions left for you guys, 2 more topics. So let's start with this one. All right. Today, obviously, the list of offensive coordinator candidates came out for the Miami Dolphins. Originally, Tony Elliott was on the list, and we've all confirmed that, he's told the Titans and the Dolphins he'll be staying at Clemson. Chargers quarterback coach Pep Hamilton, who has done stuff with Andrew Luck, Stanford, Indianapolis, and obviously he was just quarterbacks coach with Justin Herbert. We got 49ers run game coordinator Mike Daniel. We got Steelers quarterback coach Matt Canada, who worked with like Nathan Peterman and Jacoby Brissett at the college level. And then we got obviously Eric Studesville and George Godsey, who Godsey already has a relationship with Tua, because you guys remember apparently from the Chris Kaufman report, he became the passing game coordinator during the Arizona game when he took that away from Robbie Brown. And then Flores apparently never gave that right back to Robbie Brown, according to Chris Kaufman. So, okay, here we go. I want to start with you guys. We'll start with you, Paul. I want to hear, when you hear those names, who are the guys that really stand out to you?
For me, I don't want Pep Hamilton. It's everything I saw from the Chargers this year was so unbelievably predictable and simplistic as far as that went. I mean, I'm good there. I'd have to go with probably either Godsey or Mike Daniel. But I don't think that's going to be the full list of candidates. Mm-hmm. I think there's 1 or 2 left in the teams that are still playing that we're going to hear the names come out once we get through this weekend or next weekend or maybe Super Bowl weekend. Now, a lot of people have looked at, well, they're coaching the Senior Bowl. They have to have their staff fully. No, they don't have to have their staff fully in place. They've got guys that have been acting offensive coordinator before that can fill the role for the Senior Bowl while they continue their search if they need to, if there's somebody that they're really waiting on kicking the tires with. Which
Dante is hoping is Kafka, and other people are hoping might be Dorsey, and I agree with the Kafka, and I agree with the Dorsey takes out there. Okay, so BallGame, what are your thoughts when you hear that coordinator list? What names stand out to you?
Don't ask me. I don't care about offense. I'm a defense guy.
Okay, all right. This guy.
But I do believe in continuity, and I do believe
in-house.
The relationship between the quarterback and the coordinator has to be one that's rock solid. And Godsey was Tua's guy, so I stay in house if it's me. So,
all right, Kevin, let's hear your thoughts on the offensive coordinator search and who you like.
Of the guys that are on the list, I like Mike. I like McDaniel, and then I agree with Paul. I don't know that that's the full candidate list. I'd have to look into the other teams and see who's out there. I can't think of. I think it's Shane Waldron is the passing game coordinator for the Rams. He was another guy that was with Flores in New England. I don't know that he would necessarily be a candidate, but coaches are always looking at people that they're familiar with or people that are good teachers. I think is especially something that Brian Flores values. So I would say McDaniel, Shane Waldron, and then George Godsey if they stay in house. But I would imagine there's more candidates from playoff teams that aren't on that list yet.
Yeah. Dante, what do you think about the candidates on that list, minus the guys in-house? Because I know you don't want to stay in-house.
Yeah, I'm out on in-house hires for this offense. I saw enough of the guys and their work that they did this year. I don't think they're very good. So my big thing is I would love to bring in Mike McDaniel. I think everything that I've read about him, former players, former coaches, nothing but glowing reviews. The Shanahan offense right now is running the NFL, whether you like it or not. It is. We're seeing it in Cleveland with Stefanski and what he's been able to do with Baker Mayfield. Sean McVay has been able to make the Rams into a perennial Super Bowl contender with Jared Goff at quarterback. I think a lot of people forget about that. Kyle Shanahan can make a running game out of a paperclip and a couple of bad running backs every week, right? So, like, I very much am interested in getting someone from that tree, from that system, to install something that could hopefully work. So that would be my top choice. I like Pep Hamilton, I think, a little bit more than the rest of the guys on the panel. I don't particularly think the Chargers were overly simplistic. I think Anthony Lynn had a lot more to do with the play calling than Pep Hamilton did. So for me, my analysis of whether or not Hamilton would be a good offensive coordinator would be less about what they did this year from a play calling perspective and look at more what he did with Andrew Luck and the Colts in 2012 and 2014 when they were one of the highest ranked offenses in the NFL. So that would be my pushback on the Pep Hamilton thing. I do not want an in-house hire. That's my only one here. I'm willing to bend the table and I'll support Matt Canada, Anthony Lynn, Doug Peterson. Don't care. I'm not interested in an in-house hire. You need to get this right. This is, the third offensive coordinator in 3 years. You're at a very, very critical development period for your young quarterback that you just drafted at number 5 overall. Look, if Godsey's the guy, I won't know. I'm not in the building. They know more than me. If they make that hire, that speaks very, very highly of him, right? So I'll be on board with it per se, but in theory, I think you need to go outside. You need to bring in a new name, get some new ideas in this offense, because nothing from the offense that we saw last year, I think we should see again next year, really. Yeah. I don't think that there's anything that you want to bring back except for, the play of individual guys. But from a scheme perspective, from a style perspective, I think you want to see a lot of different things. So I would look outside the organization. None of them really just fill me with any type of confidence.
Now, to be fair, McDaniels got endorsed by Chris Forster, so we know
that's true.
All right. So
fair.
You kind of segued for me, and this will be the last topic before we get out of here, guys. All right. So you talked about development a little bit there. I just want to get your guys' thoughts on Armando's article, because clearly that weighs in on, hey, even if you think it's, bullshit, I want to hear your thoughts about it. Just because, let's be honest, that, those were player takes, whether the practice squad, whether it's Antonio Callaway, who's not on, the roster anymore, whoever it was, those guys were saying stuff in terms of his development. And what he talked when they compared that, he'll never be like these other players. They said, apparently having elite, accuracy is your only elite trait isn't good enough, special trait isn't good enough. Pretty damn good special trait, if you ask me. But I want to get your guys' thoughts. We'll start with you, Dante. Let's get your thoughts on just, the whole Armando thing, and I'm asking because, this is one of the hottest subjects right now in Dolphin land. So.
Yeah, look, I'll preface what I'm about, because I have a feeling that I'm going to be the only person on this panel who says this, but I'll preface this with saying that, I am not a big Armando Salguero fan. I don't particularly like him for reasons that are outside of his football opinions and football columns. With that said, and again, I might be this might be me being naive, right? But I'm a journalism student right now. I can tell you they drill into you that sources are sacred. And that, again, I'm not in a position to doubt Armando's reporting there. And again, this might be me being naive. I fully admit that. Armando, not the best guy in the world. I get it. Wouldn't put it past him, but I'm not in a position to question his sources. I think the bigger point here is less about the journalism ethics of Armando Salguero and whether or not the report actually matters. I would argue that it doesn't. In that, if it's one player, if it's 5 players, to me, it honestly doesn't matter. That's on Tua to prove to his teammates that he's the guy, right? If they don't believe after year 1, that's not a death sentence. We saw a quote come out from Tyreek Hill, who said he wasn't that impressed with Patrick Mahomes.
Called him
after
trash.
Mahomes' rookie season. Called him trash.
Yep.
None of the players, and if you read the story and if you read the quotes, and I really recommend Dolphins fans to actually go and read it, they're really not that bad. They're really not. There's a lot of, well, he's a great teammate and we like him. He's a quiet kid. He's a decent leader. Reason made a really good point saying, well, his elite trait is accuracy. I tweeted that. I don't know. Sounds like a pretty good elite trait to have, if you ask me. So the reports aren't really that bad, right? I live in Philadelphia. I have seen way worse leakage from players about the starting quarterback, guys. Let me tell you, man, this isn't even the tip of the iceberg. Alshon Jeffrey will leak something every week. Carson Wentz throws an interception. Alshon Jeffrey goes right to Josina Anderson and gets her to send a tweet out. And I have seen way worse. I would argue that this whole thing got blown way out of proportion, man. Just this got taken to a point where everyone's like, no one's defending Tua, blah, blah, blah. They weren't even that bad. None of the quotes were like, he's trash. I don't think he's this. They were like, well, I'm not sure he's elite. Are any of us on this panel going to sit here and say we are 100% sure Tua's elite right now?
Nope.
No, right? Like that's where I'm at with it. So look, not a fan of Armando. Really not. I do not follow him on Twitter. I'm not a fan. But again, I'm not in a position to question his sources, and I would argue that the quotes in there really aren't that damning.
I'm going to jump in there too, because Dante, I do agree with you, and you do protect your sources. The most humorous quote of this entire thing was, I think Armando came out and he said, look, he goes, I can confirm to you my sources said what they said, and I checked with my sources, and they prefer to remain anonymous, but I can confirm that they exist. Like, well, I can confirm that my imaginary friend here exists. You can't see him, but trust me. But in reality, it's I think you hit the nail on the head. It felt like a couple of leading questions in passing were asked, and like, oh, do you feel like Tua's the guy yet? No? Okay, cool. You said it. So now I can spin my story anonymously this way, because it's just like I could ask the kid, hey, did you brush your teeth every night this week? He's going to go, maybe. And my story's going to be, kid never brushes teeth. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
Did he really deny it, or is that exactly what was said? Because none of it was really direct quotes. It was never. It felt like a stretch to sensationalize it and get clicks. It's working.
Exactly what it was.
It's working.
Let him have a ball game.
I don't need to. He just did it for me. I think the biggest thing is that they're searching for something, man. They've never ever experienced down here, right? The craziest part for me is that positivity should be what the story is about now at this point.
Yeah,
Ohana. This negative narrative, man, of all of these different things surrounding this kid, man, is the only thing cats have to stake their claim to right now, because really and truthfully, it's really almost impossible to really attack the person, Tua. You know what I mean? Tua the person, because he's such a good kid. So, I believe it happened exactly the way Paul said it. What do you think about the kid? Well, this, that, and the other. But I believe he asked people that were really, really close to Ryan Fitzpatrick also. You know what I'm saying? Like the buddies. I wouldn't be surprised without a shadow of a doubt if one of those guys was Mike Gesicki. You know what I mean? You could see a different pep in Mike Gesicki's step when Fitzpatrick was in the game as opposed to Tua being in the game. So I'd go ask that guy, because I know I can get a sound bite out of that guy.
You mean the Mike Gesicki that blocked 90% of Dolphins Twitter because they said, ooh, Dallas Goedert's pretty good during the draft?
Yeah, that guy. You know what I'm saying? But it is what it is, man. I think across the board, man, Armando is who he is, man. A lot of people some people love him, some people hate him. I really don't care at this point. Just keep it positive. For me, keep it positive. Keep it about the positive things we have going, because that's how you bring people back in. There's always going to be people on the fringe that want to wait for, like I said, always wait for that last shoe to drop. They always sitting there like, I told you so. I told you so. Hey, trying to get those people gone, right?
I got the perfect.
Go ahead.
I got the perfect example. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to write a story tomorrow. It's called BallGame Doesn't Like Tua because BallGame Hates Offense.
Yeah, because he said it earlier.
He said he hates offense. So
that was it.
You
That's
hate
it.
Tua.
Yeah. And somebody would run with that too and be like, well, he just did all.
All right, Kevin, I know you got to go.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah. So just two things on it real quick. It's nothing like what Miko Grimes was coming out and saying back when Tannehill was the quarterback. And I agree with Dante. Nothing they said is, anything different than any objectionable fan saw on the field this year. So I don't put much stock into it. It's just something that people are going to talk about on Twitter and go crazy over because there's no game this weekend for the Dolphins. Yeah, that's my take on it.
Mm. All right, guys. So let's go through each one of you guys. I'll give you guys final thoughts. Just
Wow. One final freeze for final thoughts, guys. That's where we're at.
That's where we're at. All right. So I don't know what's up today with StreamYard's been like wonky. Even when Paul, when you're trying to come in earlier, I don't know if it was on your end because I keep having people like I keep getting the rotating mark. But anyways, all right. So I want final thoughts from you guys, and then plug, your latest pod, your latest article, your channel, whatever you got. So let's start with you, Paul.
Actually, I am going to be a gentleman because I've been stepping all over him trying to talk all night long. Let's let Kevin go first here, Reason.
Kevin, go ahead, brother.
So, final thoughts. I know you asked before about like team MVP and stuff like that. So, I guess for me, if we're not allowed to say Xavier Howard, I'll go with Kyle Van Noy. I think he does a lot of the dirty work that goes unnoticed. I just think he had a really good season, played through a lot of injuries, so I was really impressed with his work. If I had to pick someone on offense, I would probably go with Myles Gaskin, just to kind of have that meteoric rise from being a 7th-round pick, hardly played at all last year, to basically being the main running back for most of the season. That was pretty impressive to me. As far as my personal plugs and all that, you can find my written content at DolphinsTalk.com. Twitter handle is KevinMD4, and I'm actually pleased to announce that I have my own podcast, Dolphins Talk Weekly. First episode should drop either tomorrow or Saturday, so you can catch that on DolphinsTalk.com as well.
Awesome. Dante, go ahead, brother. Final thoughts?
Well, firstly, congratulations, Kevin. I'm also at DolphinsTalk.com. Nobody told me about that. What the hell? What the heck, man? All right. My final thoughts as far as
give your MVPs.
Yeah, I'll go with an underrated one on defense, man. Give me Andrew Van Ginkel if I can't pick Xavier Howard. Really, really sorry, BallGame. Really, really good football player. Late round pick out of Wisconsin, has outperformed expectations by a mile. Dude comes to play every week. He's the only guy who shows up every single game. It's a PBU, or look, most of the time he's the only guy who shows up, in my opinion, really. Like 100% every game, it's AVG. I'm sorry. He's great. Yeah, I did. On the offensive end, give me Mike Gesicki. I think his performance this year was really, really good. You want to argue he's not as good with Tua, whatever. I've seen those two hook up against the Chiefs in triple coverage. I think they'll be fine. I'm not particularly worried about it. So those would be my MVPs if I can't pick the obvious ones. My final thoughts would be, I think that this offseason is really, really important, not only from what kind of players the Dolphins build in and what kind of players they bring in, but also the philosophy in which they start to build this team. I think the guys did a really good job highlighting that this is a team built like the old school Ravens. My caution to that is I don't know if that plays anymore. We are seeing in the current NFL that defenses regress heavily now, way more heavily. All of the analytics and the stats point that way. It's significantly harder for defenses to stay on top of the league for a long time. It just doesn't happen as much anymore. They fall off cliffs really, really quickly. Offenses are innovative and they catch up really quickly. So my caution to everyone and to Dolphins Twitter and to everyone watching is that they need to fix the offense and get that right now, or this team might fall by the wayside quicker than you think. That is the league, the trend that the league is going in. I love the defense. I think we're always going to be a sound defensive team if Brian Flores is the head coach. I don't think we're going to bottom out. That's not what I'm saying. But you cannot rely on this defense to be the top scoring defense in the NFL every year and think you're going to win 10 games. It's not going to happen. You need to fix the offense now. You have the resources to do it. You have the opening offensive coordinator position. This is very, very important. I think a lot more important than people realize.
Yeah.
Follow that up, Paul. Oh yeah, and yo, don't forget to plug your stuff though.
All right, hold on. I'll plug my stuff. DolphinsTalk.com is all my Dolphins coverage. I appear occasionally on their podcast whenever they need someone to rant for an hour. They usually bring me on. And then My draft stuff can be found at bluechipscouting.com. I'm working my way through the draft class right now. I've written about 60 reports already. Post a lot of film clips, a lot of articles. And then the NFL Draft Bible Podcast Network has Inside the War Room with new episodes every Tuesday.
Now, hold on. Before I get to Paul, this is a Nick Bolton channel, my friend. I've turned so many of my subscribers into Nick Bolton fans. Just give my people a quick synopsis of what you saw when you watched Nick Bolton, because I told you on Twitter the man shoots gaps like lightning and he hits like thunder. So what did you see?
He is an angry man. Just everything that he does is angry. He hits people over the middle. He's very much an old school linebacker in the mold of Ray Lewis's tenacity. That's the type of tenacity that he plays with on the Missouri defense. He's really fast. He's got really good range. I don't think he's a Dolphin. I'm going to be honest. I don't think he fits our mold of linebacker. We typically like bigger people, and he's pretty small.
Yeah, that's the thing, his size,
Yeah, that's the big knock on him is he's small, limited length. But, man, you picked out a good one there. He's definitely a good player. I think he'll be a successful NFLer.
Back-to-back 110-plus tackle seasons in the SEC, bro. Paul, let's get your final thoughts and your plugs and all that, brother.
Yeah, man. It's and Dante, I'm going to agree with you. Normally, I think defenses right now cannot stay at the top. What I'm going to say there, and part of why I've got Micah Parsons written on that piece of paper, is what Miami's doing on defense is, yes, the overall model is similar to the Ravens. There are some elements of the Patriots. There are some elements of a few other teams. And, yes, they do need to build up the offense. But the way that they're building this positionless, morphing defense is going to allow them to adapt as they move along. And that's one of the things I like. That's one of the things I like about Micah Parsons. He's a guy that can play at all three levels. He's a guy that you can, I mean, you don't want him at safety every play, but he's a guy that can drop back into the secondary, but can also come up and rush off the edge. And, you know, you want to talk about a team that moves people around, master defense, master coverages. That's the thing I like with this Dolphins defense that I think can last for a little longer than the typical ones these days. As far as the future goes, the future here is bright. I mean, my MVPs, leaving X out of the equation. On defense, I'm going to go off book and go with somebody, and I do like that Andrew Van Ginkel pick. I really do. But I'm going to go Bobby McCain here. And, you know, this is a guy that flies under the radar. His stuff doesn't show up on the stat sheet. But you look at that Chiefs game. If Bobby McCain didn't get hurt, when did Hunt or what's his face there, Hill, make his moves? When Jakeem Grant was, or Jesus Christ, I'm sleepy, man. It's been a long day. When Bobby McCain was standing on the sidelines with an injury, it's all of a sudden he got open over the top and then shut down the rest of the game. All of a sudden he made that play around the edge. Bobby McCain does so many special things that make everything on this defense work. And he makes a lot of those play calls on that defense. And he's that leader at that back level. Xavier Howard's a stud. Bobby's the leader back there. He makes everybody around him better. I mean, you go back to Jackie Gleason, the Honeymooners. He was the straight man that made everybody else funny. Bobby McCain is that defensive player that makes everything around him work. On the offensive side, I'm going to go off book again. I'm even going to go with a rookie here. And Robert Hunt and his development throughout the season as that big hulking right tackle up front, he made whoever was playing next to him better. Solomon Kinley as well. When the two of them were on the field next to each other, it was awesome to see because the two of them were competing to demolish people. And it really gives us one of those pieces to move forward. We keep talking about waiting for Tua's development here too. Guess what? Those three linemen showed enough promise that we can take a look and wait for their development as well along that offensive front. And you win in the trenches, it's going to allow you to do a lot more things with that offensive backfield and with that defensive backfield. Oh, yeah, and you can find me on Twitter, Fanatic Pick, on the Finside. We're on YouTube. We're on all the different stuff. We're out there. Follow on the Finside. It's fun. I talk a lot of trash there too.
BallGame, your final thoughts.
So for me, I echo all the sentiments of all of the speakers tonight. I think the biggest thing for me is that when I look at this team, I think we have a defensive identity. I think that's established. The fact that whoever we're facing, there's going to be some flexibility to be able to essentially match up and take away what they really want to do. We're only a couple pieces away. So with that being said, I do agree with what you said, Dante, in regards to offenses seem to always outpace defenses, but I don't believe that will be the case for us, right? And the way we are constructed. I think across the board, for me, it comes down to alignment and assignment, and I think Flores is tops tops in that regard, and being able to get the most out of, especially, considering we are a couple pieces away from what I consider to be a complete defense, get the most out of what the guys that we have. Offensively, I used to be an offensive guy. I used to think, that you only need a couple pieces here and there, but we still need a lot of things. And watching it all 22 back and forth week to week with reason, man, that I didn't necessarily think early on, but I believe we'll get there. So I'm not going to even speak on that because you guys did an amazing job of that. I think for me across the board right now, it comes down to continued growth from the guys that we have. And since you took my Van Ginkel away from me, and reason to tell you, man, I was walking around stomping over everybody on all the
last
other
year,
talking about Andrew Van Ginkel when everybody was like, oh, no, he ain't. I said, okay, just wait. Now he's arrived. He's a household name, and it's going to be one that we're going to actually love watching every Sunday for some years to come. I'm going to go with a rookie, Raekwon Davis. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to give you one better. I gotta even include Christian Wilkins into that process too, because them boys played their asses off. But Raekwon and his development from not really understanding what was being asked of him to going in there and doing a grown man's job every Sunday and having to do it from multiple positions tells me that we got a steal that where we got him in the draft. Like, hands down, he may very well have been our top pick, in terms of performance, because that kid played his ass off. Offensively, I'm going to go with a guy who couldn't keep himself healthy for most of his first years with us, and the fan base, and even admittedly himself, he was trying to get out of his head that he was a bust. But he shows up and he shows that he still has room to grow as to become an elite wide receiver in this league. I'm gonna go with Devontae Parker. Aside from the few games he's missed, he's there for both quarterbacks when they needed him. He tried, week in and week out to give them a viable target on the field. And he's probably right now, if we had to scrap it all, he's probably the only guy that's remaining out of that group that's still going to be here for the long haul. So, or through this process. So he would be the offensive MVP for me. So I like where we are. I have a lot of faith in Flores and Greer in regards to what they're doing. And I like the fact that Ross stays out of the way, and allows them to do their jobs. And I just believe that what we've seen is nothing remotely close to what it's going to be when it's all said and done. And I think a lot of teams in the league are trying to also speed up their process because they know that we are essentially a season and a half ahead of schedule. Mm-hmm. And that catching up to Buffalo, obviously I'm wishing for their downfall this weekend. But even if they do pull it off, that bodes well for the level of competition we're going to have in the AFC that's just not completely AFC East that's not completely dominated by the Patriots anymore. So it's all positivity for me. I can't really find any negatives anymore because they were so few far between from taking 5 games to 10 games that I don't even want to dwell in them. I think they've been identified, the areas that we need to fix and focus. And I think I know what I share without. Our guys will do an amazing job of getting that done for us. And we'll be proud of the product that they put on the field for us next season. So,
and shout out to Paul, because I know he had to leave, but you got away out of here, brother, before I gave you the Robert Hunt work, because my guy, he is a guard, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Dante's already explained when it comes to the hips, and I just don't see the feet. The feet are where just like bounce out to me. So, okay, here's the thing. When you talk about defensive MVP for me, I'm actually going to surprise some people here. I'm going to go with Eric Rowe. And the reason why I'm going to go with Eric Rowe is the only 2 guys that beat him are two of the best at his position, and neither one of those guys got in the end zone. Other than that, he erased Kittle earlier on. I mean, you look at how good, I know Flores hates the term, but you look at how good he was as a rover this year when they used him in the block. I mean, Eric Rowe is solid. I think Eric Rowe is actually the captain of that secondary. I think he's the heart of that secondary because he was the one that was converted to that spot before Bobby was, right? And Eric Rowe has taken to that spot so well. And even against elite guys like Kelsey and Waller, yeah, he'll bend, but he didn't break. And I mean, Kelsey, he got his touchdown when against Fledulum, and I believe it was Jerome Baker. You know, it wasn't Eric Rowe that gave that up. So that's where I'm at with my defensive MVP. But you know, I'm only doing that because AVG was gone. You know, everyone took AVG. I would have taken him. I mean, y'all heard what I said earlier about the playoff berth. He's the only guy who's playing like we had playoffs on the line. And then offensively, I'm going to go with a rookie, but I'm going to go with a rookie offensive lineman too. I'm going to go with Solomon Kinley. And the reason why I'm going to go with Solomon Kinley is multiple things. Robert Hunt's best game was against Arik Armstead in the San Francisco 49ers, who was to his left side. A healthy Solomon Kinley before he started battling the foot injury. Okay, he comes back from the foot injury. All right, and Austin Jackson is 1,000 times better in the run in run sets than he's been all season with Eric Flowers beside him. I'll do even one better. Other than Jesse Davis's really good one game at left tackle this year, he was terrible as a guard when they kicked him in. I don't know why they didn't kick him inside because he's clearly better as a tackle. And him and Kinley communicating, passing off combo blocks between each other, like they work decently well together. So I got the reason why I'll go with Kinley is I got multiple people I can sit here and say Kinley made better around him. Like I just listed 3 guys that I can say had some of their best games this season with Kinley beside them. So I'm gonna go with Solomon Kinley. I think the you know, especially saw it, you know, he wasn't already that athletic and fleet of foot. You saw it with his pulling already. When he started battling that foot injury, he became slower on pulling, so you saw it was really affecting his game. But I'll go with Solomon Kinley will be my off the script. I'll go with a rookie type of guy. Because BallGame even took my Raekwon from our podcast. This guy, so
he took my ABG. So
yeah, oh yeah, so just double up, huh? On reason. Yeah. All right, guys. I just wanted to say I appreciate each and every one of you guys for spending almost 2 hours with me. Dante's used to it. BallGame's used to it. This is Kevin's first time. I appreciate Paul and Douglie. Thank you guys for coming on. And guys, I will be back. I think I'm going to be back Saturday night. And until then, actually, you know what? I lied. I'm going to be back tomorrow.
Tomorrow night.
No. I'm going to be back tomorrow at lunch because I got something I want to go over with all of you guys tomorrow at lunch, and I'll be opening it up to everyone. So I'll be back tomorrow, and then I may be back Saturday or Monday for my free agent video. I'll let y'all know tomorrow. But until then, y'all already know what time it is. It's Fins Up all day, every day. There's still over about 275 of you still stuck around. So smash that like button, subscribe if you're new here. Appreciate you all. Hope you stay happy, healthy, safe, and blessed during these crazy times. Fins Up, everyone.